Hello and welcome to another episode of Flix and Joystix. I'm your host Guy, and this is a live video, so you know the rules, anything goes. So I'm hoping this turns out a little better than my last video. My last episode 6 turned out that my voice was like 85 octaves much lower than it normally is. Couple technical streaming issues, you have bad USB cord, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully it's better. I did a test. I sounded normal. Hopefully I'm sounding normal right now. Otherwise, technical issues, live show. So today I want to talk about one of my personal favorite things about movies that's going on. I'm kind of on a quest of late, I guess a spiritual journey, if you will. I love movies. I've grown up loving all sorts of movies. I've seen tons and tons and tons of them. This is nothing new. However, my specific quest that I'm going through right now is that I am trying to find the worst movie of all time. So what does the worst movie of all time actually mean? Well, the thing is, I really love bad movies. I grew up, it was funny. I was trying to think of the origin of where did this come from, and it came from a couple of different sources. My dad's always had a big influence on my life, and during the weekend I lived in Dallas at the time, and on channel 27, which was KDFI, they had a whole series of bad monster movies during the weekend. It was everything from like the Japanese movies, from like all the giant rubber suited monsters to different horror films. I mean, it was good stuff too. It was like Hammer Films and, the Godzilla type things, but there were also not so good movies as well. But it was kind of a special memory for me. Also, with my dad, I used to watch Joe Bob Briggs on Monster Vision, which was another great thing. And Joe Bob was great because he went off and discussed all these non-mainstream movies, a lot of the movies that most people didn't cover. And his rating system was largely based on how many bodies and boobs that the film presented, and that usually affected his rating scale there. There was, of course, Elvira's Movie Macabre, and then I would be absolutely remiss, as what most people have probably found their entryway into bad movies, it would be because of these two little guys right here. Obviously, when Funko put these out, I had to jump at the chance to get these two little guys because they're awesome. So I've had a number of bad movies that I've grown up and watched and loved. And bad doesn't necessarily mean the worst. There are movies that can fail on a number of different technical reasons. Bad editing, bad sound, bad acting, bad story, or just it's so technically incompetent it shouldn't be a film at all, and yet here we are. So I was trying to think, what was one of the worst that I've ever seen? And I've seen a lot of bad movies, but there's some that I think when people think of bad movies, if you're a real cinephile, the technical go-to, or at least the mainstream one, has always been Manos, The Hands of Fate. Manos is bad, absolutely, but I also kind of love Manos. I think if they'd worked on some pacing issues, some editing issues, music, well, I kind of like the music, I'm not going to lie. And I even kind of like the characters. It's by no means a good movie, but the elements are so awful, coupled with when the robots go after the films on MST, that they kind of add a special nuance to the film it didn't previously have. And I've actually seen Manos without the robot commentary, and it's you're kind of conditioned to make fun of that film as it will. Now, if you ask a modern audience, like today's audience, there are a lot of people that will declare Star Wars: The Last Jedi as the worst movie ever made. And I also don't think that's true. There are people to the point where they just dedicate their whole lives or video commentary, written commentary, in numerous times saying that this is the worst film ever made. And after 6 months of this film being out, honestly, there's only so much you can say about it. do what do I think of The Last Jedi? I sat on it for a while. I went back and forth from liking it, disliking it. I certainly love Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher's performances, but ultimately, I feel that is messy and nihilistic, and it really hammers the point home that nothing matters. I don't know if that's a great message for something that uses the hero's journey as one of the biggest points of its main narrative. I don't know if that really works, but by all definition, it is a film. So I don't think Last Jedi, despite its flaws, is the worst movie ever made. So I've narrowed it down to a list of what I think my top 5 are. And I'm going to go through them, and I'm going to talk about some of the contenders first that could have been. And it's funny that just this week, you know one, Doombot, yeah, there's definitely one. There was a contender just this week, of all things, as I was sitting here formulating this idea. Damn, it was like manna from heaven. It really just came at a perfect time, and I'll get that. I'll get over to that. What are some of the worst films that I've seen that I think could be contenders for my top 5? And as I said, I have one that I'm going to still list my original top 5, but the one I think I might have found a successor. So films that I've nearly walked out of in theaters have been Batman and Robin, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. When I was in San Diego, I saw Juwanna Man, which is not a good film. And it was funny. A friend of mine actually went to see that. And I would like to say there were maybe 1 or 2 other people in the theater at that time. I can't verify that, but I do know there were. I remember seeing that, and I remember because it really was that was an early day of let's go see the worst thing ever. And I remember the guy, when we wanted to go see this, he looked at us really weird, and then we went to. They literally shoved this movie way in the back, farthest reach of the movie theater. They knew what they had, and I don't think it was there much longer. But I remember seeing that, and I remember wondering why I saw that. Now, films I haven't seen, which I would think would be among the worst ever made, are the Human Centipede trilogy and Tusk. I think those are rate high. I don't know if it's necessarily a general aversion of mine to really, really gross out body horror. I liked The Fly. I thought it was nasty as all hell, the Jeff Goldblum version. I thought it was nasty, but I recognized it as a really good horror film. And even at the end, there was sympathy for Goldblum, Brundlefly. But I've wanted to see the Human Centipede and Tusk just to see if how they would rank on this list of mine. And the thing is, I don't know what kind of mood I would need to be in order to see those films. I don't know if that's really. I don't know. I haven't been able to figure out where I would need to be at what point in my life that I would want to see these films. So I haven't done that. So this quest is inconclusive at this point, and this is only based off what I have at this time. So this is one of the things I want to open up for discussion as this video goes on, and certainly after the fact, I want to really narrow it down. But I want to narrow it down. I want to eventually find the most definitive list I can possibly put together. Although there are always movies in production, there isn't enough human life in existence where I could see every bad movie, and I do like good movies, so there comes a point. Battlefield Earth, I'd forgotten that one. I think it was just a defensive mechanism in my brain that I saw that one again with the same friend I saw Juwanna Man with, and that wasn't good either, at all. Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard was not a good storyteller for sci-fi. Bless him, but well, no. So there are a couple other contenders that friends have told me about. Most man animals don't like it. There are a couple contenders that I asked around friends, how you do on social media, what are the good uses for it. Um, Among contenders were Leprechaun in the Hood, the Hulk movie from Ang Lee, Strange Lands from Dee Snider, Catwoman, Red Zone Cuba, which was another movie that was an MST classic, I guess. Um, yeah, so those are a couple other ones that were listed, and I think I'm trying to think what else. Dr. T and the Women, but again, I don't know. I haven't seen Showgirls. I feel like this is like a weird, torturous journey that I'm on, so I don't know how this will eventually go. But this is, again, I'm opening this up for discussion. So I want to get to my listing of what I think are my personal top 5 worst movies I've ever seen. So number 1 is Sausage Party, the animated film where apparently grocery store food has a life of its own. They feel pain. They go through this existence thinking humans are God, and they take them home or whatever to magical lands, and then the reality sets in. This is a terrible, crass, meandering, plotless, shitty movie that I remember seeing it at a friend's, and I remember progressively getting annoyed by it. It just went on. It might have succeeded as a short, but it just, oh God, it was just so bad. I heard they were terrible to the animators. I haven't heard that. It's just, the whole thing is terrible. Another movie that this would be my second one, Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. That was filmed in Las Vegas. It was filmed at the Wynn for a little over a month. It's another one of those Happy Madison films that you know what you're getting into well before you even see the movie. And I have a backstory with that. I'll get into that later. But that film, I don't know why these films happen. I have a theory as to why these Happy Madison films happen. I think they're tax write-offs. I think these are a chance for Adam Sandler and all his friends to get together, hang out, make a movie, show the footage to their tax people to show that they actually did something, get it written off, boom, there you go. But other than that, I don't know why these films keep coming out. I don't know why they suck as bad as they do. I don't, and it's been mentioned in the past, there's always Adam Sandler did these films. I loved Billy Madison when it came out. I loved Happy Gilmore when it came out 20 plus years ago. And they were dumb, but they were funny, and you kind of felt like he was trying. And then he actually did try with things like The Wedding Singer, which I thought was a decent movie. And I've heard Punch Drunk Love and Click are actually decent, but you just reach a Sandler saturation point where you can't bring yourself to see all these endless movies where you can tell they're just reached the point that they don't try anymore. The thing about Paul Blart, it was a humorless comedy, and there was only one scene that I laughed where Paul Blart goes out to an atrium in the Wynn and gets in a fight with a bird while a piano player just looks on. And it was so confusing. I think that's why I laughed. I was more baffled than anything else. And I was almost grateful for the release to be at least feel something other than, why is this happening? And even then I still felt like, why is this happening? So it wasn't it existed. I think they just wanted a month-long Vegas vacation. The third movie on my list is Big Money Hustlers. This was one that I actually could not finish. It was Insane Clown Posse starring in this movie. I think that says more than it needs to. They're wearing their Juggalo clown makeup in the Old West. I don't see how in any conceivable plot line anyone would be okay with this without instant shootouts. But it just, I don't understand the Juggalo fan base. I know it's a real thing. I know it's a passionate thing. It is not my thing, but it is a thing. And I couldn't make it through. I also couldn't make it through Hangover 3. I didn't think that was a particularly amazing film as well. It's like I was watching it and the video file corrupted, and I was like, well, I'm done. It's good for me. Paranormal Activity would be number 4. It was a film filled with stupid people. They are in a situation, you have to give credit to the universe that you're in. You have to suspend disbelief and play within the rules of the film's universe, whether it's realistic or not or whatever. There has to be certain things that make sense within that world. This film, they have this demon in their house that they set up like a kind of like a video camera feed, almost like a Blair Witch sort of thing. And I kind of like Blair Witch, the original one, for what it was, because it was experimental and different, and they really did a decent job with marketing and passing it off as found footage, a real thing. And for the simplistic era of the late 1990s, it was an interesting concept. But this is doing a guy filming with his camera. Weird shit is happening all the time. I don't know how many times it takes for somebody to get tortured and traumatized by paranormal demonic activities before they say, nope, I'm done, I'm out. But they never reach their limit on this. Even when they're getting dragged out of the bed, even the Freeling family from Poltergeist eventually called it quits. I mean, they didn't again, I love Poltergeist, but even they didn't leave the house in a timely manner. I would think after getting their kid out of the TV vortex, supernatural afterlife world, that they'd just be like, nope, and wouldn't stay an extra night regardless. But, it made for a great climax. That's how you do a movie well. This movie, there was no reason to stay in this house. There was no reason to antagonize this demon and keep antagonizing this demon. And then at the end, when it's so bad that they still ride that train to stupidity. And it was amazing how stuck to their guns they were. They were going to ride this through and everything was going to be fine when it clearly wasn't. So it had an ending that pissed me off to no end. And I know there's like 76, 142 sequels that followed after Paranormal Activity 1, but I think 1 was enough for me, and I didn't need to see any more of the continuing series. I did read the plot lines. Each one sounds progressively dumber than the previous one. So good job, filmmakers. Awesome. Now, the 5th film, and this is my final on the 5. So originally I thought Birdemic. Birdemic is another cheesy, bad. Birdemic's another one of those popular culture, which is a bad movie. It's up there, I think, like with The Room. It's so bad you have to kind of owe it to yourself to see it. And Birdemic has just stupid special effects. They're so comedically bad. They're like 1990s era stock, not even stock footage. It's like they just got GIFs and pasted in the screens of these attacking birds, which somehow made it better. There was a heavy-handed environmental message, which, yay for environmentalist movies, but it got lost in all the convolution. There was the one song where they were hanging out. Oh, yes, hanging out with their family and having themselves a party. That it's catchy, of course they sing it long enough, but it's such a stupid movie, and it goes on and on and on. I got into a discussion with a friend of mine. He was like, at least that one was earnest and enthusiastic. They wanted to make this great thing. There's a difference between people who just make bad movies, who have no business making movies just because they don't understand, and then there's people who are just horrible sellouts and they don't care whether they make a good movie or not. And I think Adam Sandler falls under that definition. But at least the guy who made Birdemic, I think he was passionate about it. He made 2 more. I think you had everything you needed to be said with Birdemic 1, but he felt confident about this idea. It could be a trilogy or a cinematic universe. So there was that. So now I saw a movie with the missus this week, and It was like kismet. I had already planned this video, and I think, this came probably at the best time it possibly ever could, because the missus knew that I was wanting to do this, and we've been on the subject of bad movies for a while now, and so she put on one that neither one of us had seen, and we went to Amazon Video, and by God, it might be the contender. We saw movie 43. This is one I don't hear about as much. You heard about it. It came out in 2013, and you don't hear about it as much. And I think there's a reason for it, because it doesn't really fit anything that should be called a film. It may actually be one of the most unfunny films I have ever seen. And the thing is, I like shock humor. I like things that are inappropriate, and I like things that are a little off the beaten track. I like things that make me sit back. Oh my God, I can't believe they said that. And none of it worked for me. It was like a void. It was like a sensory deprivation chamber where sight and sound and humor could not enter or escape. It was a black hole of misery. More puzzling about this film is I think they made this film over 4 years, and over the course of the 4 years, they got some top-notch actors and writers. They got Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, Kate Winslet, Chris Pratt, Anna Faris. They got a number of people, and the same thing again for directors. They get like James Gunn and Griffin Dunn and a number of other notable people within the industry. And somehow they made this anthology film where I think it was a dozen different sketches, and each one sucked on its own different level. I've never seen a film that bad. Well, I might have, and I might yet one day see a film that's worse, but it is definitely the one that in most recent memory, because I already had my top 5 written, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to have to rethink this, because I that's the thing. It's like the concept of it was actually really good, because they don't really make comedy anthology movies. There's been other ones. There's been Groove Tube, Amazon Women on the Moon, Kentucky Fried Movie, and again, same situation. A bunch of different sketches, a bunch of top name talent. Some of the things were very offensive. I think Kentucky Fried Movie had a scene that would never absolutely fly under any circumstance in modern film. But it was so shocking, and oh my God, I can't believe that. And you could tell at least the actors involved with that were game for it. So it worked in that regard. But this does nothing for providing ammunition that yes, we need to bring back the revival of comedy anthologies. I know they do a couple horror anthologies from time to time. They don't really actually do that many anthologies anymore. I don't know if modern audiences just aren't feeling it, but there used to be cool things like Creepshow and like some of the other comedy movies. And I think comedy and horror are two of the hardest genres. Rex Kramer, Danger Seeker. Yeah, I will I'll leave that to Rex Kramer, Danger Seeker, and leave it at that. If you wish to research that, then there you go. But horror, as I was saying, horror and comedy are two very hard things to write for. And I know Peele, when he did Get Out, and he was primarily known for the Key and Peele show, when Jordan Peele did Get Out, he said comedy and horror are very similar because you have to hit the right beats in order to make it effective. And I absolutely agree with that. And that was probably the best summation I've ever heard of that. And yeah, that was a dark void of crap. And it's just, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And there's been a number of bad films as I said, but I think I'm looking for the worst film. I'm looking for something worse than your Troll 2, or um, there's just been a number of films, and it's, again, if you're watching this later, then certainly put in the comments what you think is like the worst. Not something that, oh, it's so terrible, but I love it, and it's just like my guilty pleasure. No, no, I'm talking about the ones that make you angry, or the ones that make you want to turn it off or leave the movie theater, or you feel, even if you didn't spend money on it, it was a tragic waste of your time. And those are the type of films that I'm looking for, and I'm trying to narrow it down as to what might actually be the worst versus the most. As I said, you have your Manos or your Birdemic or The Room or whatever, and those are not great films, but they're not the worst films. They at least fly to because of the dog scene, that and the birthing larva scene. Yeah, if you're gonna gross out, at least I don't know. Horror films are always tricky because I think a lot of them confuse a lot of gore and corn syrup splashed across the screen as horror or a good movie or a good interesting story or characters. And I think Gina Davis gives birth to a fly larva. Yeah, yeah. Did they? The fly larva thing. Did they? Yeah, that was a dream sequence in the first one. I think they realized it in the second one, but it was a different actress because Gina Davis at that point was like, nope, not doing it. But I found something, just again. So this has been an interesting week. As I said, I found movie 43. Yay. And I also found something else interesting. I was out and about, and I always hear these stories about people finding amazing things at thrift stores. And I've never been that lucky. People will come back with like great movies or great games or great collectible item. And none of the stores that I've ever found have like the holy grail of, oh my God, I have to get this and it's only whatever. Well, this time I lucked out to an extent. And I didn't fully read the packaging, but you know what? I didn't care. There was a thrift store that had 20 movies. You could get 20 movies for free. That was it. You just pick out 20 VHS tapes, and they had 2 shopping carts full of various VHS movies just thrown in there, and you could sift through and dig and pick out up to 20, take them home. That was it. No money involved. It was like the greatest thing ever. And the ones that I saw had some really good ones. I mean, they had everything from like the Indiana Jones trilogy to most of the Star Trek films, Back to the Future, Rocky, Speed. I'm trying to think what else they had. They had a lot of the Star Wars films. I think they had, the first 4, the, Star Wars, Empire Return, and Phantom Menace. And they had a number of really good films. I actually picked up a couple just because of the novelty of having it on VHS. And then I found this. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the making of the Coming Out of Their Shells tour. I've seen enough videos on this to know that this is a special piece of garbage. I was kind of hoping it was the actual tour itself, but this is the making of it. This thing was so popular, apparently, that they made a documentary about it. And look at it. Just, I can't. I have to know why, how, what is this about? And it has the single "You Can Count on Us." I loved Ninja Turtles as a kid, and I still obviously have a soft spot for them. But I think I was just past that point where it's like, nah, I'm not gonna watch that. But you can't go wrong with free. I think that's an amazing price, and I'm compelled to go see what the making of Coming Out of Their Shells is all about. And I may have to do a live viewing of this, or at least a streaming review, because now my hackles are raised and I'm curious, and I have to see. That was the only regret in regards to the sea of free movies. And beggars can't be choosers, especially with the price. I can't be too complaining, but they didn't really have any many like monster movies. I did find Day of the Triffids, so I'm gonna have to go dig the VCR out of mothballs and see how that is. But there are so many films out there. So this quest, this spiritual journey that I'm on, I am looking to see what is going to be the one. And it has to be more than just simply like, it has to be more than just like gross. It has to be, it has to fall out of the definition of what could technically be considered a movie. And again, movie 43 fell within that definition, but I'm almost curious. I'm almost willing to subject myself to see if there is something worse out there. But presently, movie 43 is conveniently holding the record for me as to what might be the worst movie of all time. But again, you can find most films under the comedy and horror genre, but I want to see if other genres, what their contenders are. And I certainly want to hear what your response is. Even if you aren't watching this live, I appreciate the two people who are watching right now. I'm a new channel. I don't expect a lot in the way of initial viewers, and that's totally cool. But, if you find this video and you're interested in this ludicrous journey that I'm on, if you have any suggestions or submissions, I want to open up a debate, and I want to see what other people think is the worst ever. And maybe, just maybe, a collective of us can come together and pseudo-officially declare the worst movie of all time. That is presently my goal right now. We all have dreams. This one's mine. So those are my current ones that I think are some of the worst ones out there. Hopefully you haven't seen some of the ones that I've mentioned, and if you haven't, and you're willing to subject yourself to some of those, then by all means, let me know what you think. Let me know if any of my choices are definitely on your list as well, and certainly give me some suggestions, because I want to work together with you guys. I want to find what's the worst thing out there. But for those of you that stopped by, and for those of you who will stop by, thanks for checking in, hanging with me on this video. I'm always talking about films, video games, pop culture media. So the obvious video spiel: like, comment, subscribe, hang out. I'm trying to build a community with this. So let's see where this goes. All right, you guys, thank you so much for checking in. I finally figured out a format of what I'm doing. I think every 6th video, that's my going plan right now. Every 6th video will be a live video, so we can open up different discussion topics. That way I'm not really bound to too long of a time, and it kind of gives me other projects to work with in between. So again, thanks for stopping by. I look forward to hearing some of your feedback. I feel I'm going to get some interesting choices in there. All right, you guys, take care.